So I want to welcome those who are here to this installment of our webinar series. And we're very thankful you're here. We're small in number, but the information is excellent. And we're certainly glad you're here for this learning experience. So just as a reminder, this is being recorded and it will be posted on our YouTube page for future use and future viewing. You can access all of our webinars, prior webinars that are posted through our YouTube page. I'll post that in chat as we get started. As we go through this webinar, if you have any questions, please put them in chat, and then I will share those with our presenters towards the end of the webinar. We anticipate about 45 minutes for the material. Give or take, and then we'll use the rest of the time to answer questions. We're very excited to have our presenter here today with Safe Slide Restoration. If you're unfamiliar with Safe Slide, they are a very, very reputable company that works with water slides of all types, primarily in the commercial market. With repairs and renovations and making sure they're nice and clean and smooth. So really good company. They come highly recommended. Our presenter today is Tony Perry. Tony left his mark on the steel industry actually by working as a railroad inspector and manufacturing manager from a very young age. He realized his passion for sales and marketing and entered the retail and service industry, building 3 successful businesses, including a retail store, a logistics company, and a commercial service company. Being with Safe Slide since 2011, he's been an integral part of the Safe Slide growth with his expertise in the field of composites and coatings that inspires confidence in his team and all partners. He's certified in SPRAT, AIMS International, NDT Ultrasonic, and NDT Visual. He's 17 years of experience in specialty coatings, 12 years in the fiberglass industry, and 7 in locomotive and steel manufacturing. Along with providing confidence for the aquatics industry, he loves spending time with his wife, 4 daughters, and son. So with that being said, I'm going to turn it over to you, Tony, and have it away.
Yeah. Thanks, Dewey. It really is special to be here. We're passionate about protecting your guests and protecting your investments. I'm really felt blessed to have come into the water park industry. I never thought that it would take me all over the world, and I've been able to do inspections in places like Dubai and Singapore and Sydney, Australia, and Barcelona. I just never knew that was in the making for me as I entered into this industry. But it's really been special for us to partner with people like Dewey and yourselves to just have that passion to protect the guests and to protect your investments. So let's get going through these slides. We have 40 plus slides to get through, and I want to make sure that we're getting to the Q&As. So these learning objectives, we're going to understand the requirements and best practices for conducting daily, quarterly, and annual inspections in water parks. We're going to identify common safety risks associated with ride pass services and develop strategies to mitigate that liability. We're going to perform visual inspections of steel structures to detect and address corrosion caused by chlorinated water, and apply knowledge of non-destructive testing, NDT, methods to assess the integrity of a water park structure without destroying it. That's the point of NDT. And recognize the primary causes of slip and falls accidents in the water park and implement preventative measures for them. So we'll cover those. So starting with the inspection protocol cycle, we're going to continue to try to point back to the manufacturer guidelines, ASTM, ANSI, DOH, AIMS, NARSO. They're all helping to come around, but we want to make sure that we're visiting the OEM, getting into a habit of daily inspections, pre-season and in-season, different points of your water park. This may vary for indoor water parks that have a heavier season or longer season, versus your seasonal parks that are open for about 100 days out of the year. Inspection protocols, continuing like scheduling your inspections and being prepared for those moments that you are being reactionary. That's essential. And if I was going to say boiling this session down, as I've done this for other corporations and at Ames, and we'll be speaking at WWA, this is not a small thing to keep your eyes fresh and to keep your senses fresh each and every day for you and your team. You have to be about it so that they're about it, not just talk about it. And that's a discipline. There's no easy way for me to explain that to you, other than you're just pretending that you're walking into your facility each and every day with a fresh set of eyes on it, and you're listening and you're letting your nose smell those things that are out of place, so that you're being an example for your team. If you could get that out of today's session and do that on an annual basis or regular basis, I'll be really proud of the class itself. Why to do the inspections? Maintain the equipment. You're trying to stay ahead of the equipments and the assets. Safety of the teams and guests. We have to keep in mind that we have our lifeguards and our team's safety as well as the guests, and protect us in litigation. And there are lots of litigation going on right now. I don't know if there was a bottleneck, but we hear about a lot of litigation that's happening right now. So we're trying to protect that even from ever being a lawsuit. Annual shutdowns. So as you're looking at your annual shutdowns, especially for your seasonal, but if you have shutdowns that are tighter windows for your indoor water parks, it's very much the same. You just have less time to prepare for it. So plaster tile, steps, hand railings, platforms, fiberglass, looking at those hydrostatic valves and expansion joints, efficient operational maintenance, the replacement of gaskets, grates, inlets, plugs, skimmers, baskets, wares, lids, pressure testing of the circular lines and service flow meters, vacuum gauges. Those service flow meters, it's very essential that your flow meter is in line with your OEM manufacturer's guidelines. So you do have to make sure that they're operating properly. Your surge tanks, of course, conveyors, chemical balance, that you're in the saturation point index, the SI, and your filters and media. This is a great video. We're just proving here that we take seriously inspecting every square inch of a slide. And there's Josh Lonis, has been inspecting slides for 10 years with us. He's crawling through, trying not to get wet here at an indoor water park. And I hate to spoil it for you, but he does not fall into the water. And Dalton, look at that yoga move. Like, that's impressive right there. Look at that. And Dalton is giving him a hard time all the way through this. So we really want to emphasize that daily inspections are important, and you do have to look at every part of that ride surface, especially for body slides. That's where your guests are coming into direct contact with that ride surface. So if there's a negative seam, positive seams, chips, or gouges, you really have to slow down and inspect that ride surface. Daily inspections, here we are. So the inspections should happen daily. They do need to be documented. The information does have to be correct, and you do want to follow the guest journey. And so that does mean daily ride inspections as well. You're doing a dry inspection and you're doing a ride inspection. Hopefully your guards are doing it. Don't do this and then not take credit for it, because if you don't document it, then it wasn't done. It has to be in writing. So please make sure that you're documenting that. It's a great way to protect yourself from litigation. And then have quick action plans. Use a grading system that if something is a maintenance and it just needs to be done when the park shuts down, or if something's serious and that ride needs to not be in operation, just make sure that you're in agreement in those areas that could be subjective, that you know whether an attraction is operational or not. Netting, metal hoops, foam features, conveyors, water sprayers, and interactivities, plaster and scales. I'll just highlight the importance of water sprayers. You can forget about water sprayers, and they're essential for the rider to pass through. And there's some at least one lawsuit that we know of right now, where the sprayer was clogged from coatings. That slowed down the tube. The tube stopped, and another tube came and hit that tube. So we have to slow down and make sure that the water that the OEM has decided is needed there, that they're staying clear. We also just last month had to respond to an emergency repair where just the riders from different, like I have 4 girls, right? So they've got hair ties and beads, and these things were getting clogged in the inlets into the bowl slide, and that created backup pressure of the pipe, and the pipe cracked. And so keeping an eye on all those areas of water that are coming into the ride so the ride is operating safely. We just have to slow down again, have fresh set of eyes, fresh set of ears to catch these things before they actually break and somebody gets injured. Park inspection points, the fiberglass flumes we've talked about, making sure that the ride path is safe, really focusing in and slowing down on the body slides and wherever your guests are coming into contact with that fiberglass flumes. Steel towers and structures and supports, visually inspecting those. If something is a concern, get it documented, get it in front of your maintenance team. Pump rooms, lots of things to be listening for in the pump room, and also smells that you want to be tuned into. If something electrical, my mom's Portuguese, but she's not making fish down in your pump room. If you smell fish, that's probably your electrical system burning. Common areas. So we do follow the guest path through the park. So we're looking for trip and fall areas. We're looking at steps. We're looking at railings. We're looking at restrooms. So not just in and around the queue lines of the attraction and the attraction itself, but also everywhere where the guests are going. Don't become blind to things. You have to be looking for signs. This is a water leak that was coming from the ceiling. It had been there for some time, and then we showed up and started asking questions about this. We have to be tuned in and not look the other way. And so we don't want things falling from the sky. So document it, get it in front of your maintenance team, and get a action plan together. Plaster and tile. This is something that you do need to be ahead of, and it's something that you may be just doing every 5-7 years. So it's important to get those inspections done and then start to get your contractors laid out to be on their schedule, because it's not a regular routine, and good contractors that are doing this type of work, they really do, they're sought after. So they have a really long queue line. But getting ahead of these, I would say don't procrastinate. When the Labor Day falls and you feel like catching your breath, you've got to push yourself to get this stuff documented and to move through. Foam and plaster. So foam products are great, and then when they start to break down, they start to break down quickly. It's a really niche. It's as if fiberglass repair wasn't niche enough. Foam repair is even more niche. So when you're seeing these breakdowns of coatings, get with the original OEM, start there, and then they may refer you to another company like Bomar or Fast, somebody like that, to make these types of repairs. Conveyors, it's wonderful to have conveyors, and then they're really difficult to maintenance. So let's look at the next slide. Here's a bearing that burnt out from hair. No surprise there. So it's painstaking, but we have to go back to the manuals and the maintenance manuals with our conveyor belts and make sure that we're following them and making sure that we're inspecting those bearings. Netting and gaps, the picture that's on my left, that's a 4-inch ball that is there. So that gap is actually much more than 4 inches, and it's a not a play structure, but it's a ropes course. And we actually were in the middle of an inspection, and a toddler crawled underneath one of these gates, and then we had to coach the toddler down. Being responsive, they were having difficulty finding the keys to this gate. So you have to know that something is going to occasionally go wrong, and you have a response mechanism to that. Toddler got off safe and sound, but it started by this prevention that the gate should not have that 4-inch gap underneath it, more than that. Same thing with netting. Where you don't want your guests to go, make sure that they can't go. It's some little kid named Tony Perry who's going where he's not supposed to be going. That kid is the kid that we've got to protect ourselves from. So that's where netting and keeping your guests out of the areas that you don't want them to go to. Yeah, so when we're walking through parks, and this applies indoor and outdoor, we need to be looking up. We need to be checking those fans. We need to be checking those secondary cables. This is a bracket that's in the middle that's broken. But if we're not slowing down, keeping our eyes up, looking with fresh eyes, we're going to be missing these types of things. And then document, get it maintenance, and get it repaired. There's a kind of news that we don't want, and we don't want to be in the news for air ducts falling out of the sky. We don't want to be in the news for a helicopter falling out of the sky. We don't want to be in the news because something underneath a tower structure is falling down like a piping. So it's up to you and your team to be looking for these challenges and these safety issues, and then getting them corrected quickly. The sprayers, we talked about the importance of the sprayers. They are intended to make the ride operate smoothly, and so that there aren't any collisions. And even on some body slides, if these sprayers are not working properly, you'll get like rug burn, but it's fiberglass burn in these dry spots. So it's important to have that part of your daily inspection. And then inside this bowl, we can't see it in this picture on the left, but the inlets that are giving the water into that ride, those need to be checked to make sure that they're not getting clogged. As I said, hair ties, beads, things that are getting into the system. Pump rooms. There's so much going on in the pump rooms, but I'll just highlight the flow rates and the 5 states that require the state inspections, and Texas may not be in that category now, but the flow rates are essential part of the state inspection: Texas, Kansas City, California, Colorado, and Minnesota. So those, when we're doing an inspection, we're looking at the flow rate. It's good to have those labels where that flow rate should be, right next to your flow meter. And then we're checking those flow rates against your OEM manuals. One thing that I've noticed is I've heard, oh, somebody at so-and-so manufacturer said that it was okay to be at this range, and that's why it's not in the range of the manual. That's fine. Get that documented. Even if it's just an email, print that email out, hole punch it, put it in your physical manual, you're good to go. Visual verified grounding, bonding pumps. Yep. So that's what we have to say there for the pump room. Flow meters. Yep. Yeah. So other things in pump rooms, we can't have ladders in the way of entries or exits. There's obviously a problem here. It's been like that for too long. You can see the zip tie there. So we just got to slow down, catch these things, and know that temporary fixes are intended to be temporary fixes. They cannot be permanent fixes, and we have to get ahead of those, keeping a fresh set of eyes. Yeah, so we like to check some of these things in common ground areas. As I said earlier, everywhere you don't want the guest to go, you want to make sure that you're controlling that place. So this is an air duct filter on the left-hand side. There's a lock on it. Oftentimes we don't see locks on these. The center picture, we're highlighting that there needs to be a secondary cable on the TV that's in this cabana. And so any areas like that that you're thinking, could this light, could this TV, could this fan fall? You should be looking for those secondary cables. Exit doors are important that if they have an alarm, that the alarm is sounding, they do need to open with less than 15 pounds of pressure. And the egress needs to be an egress that's safe for the amount of people that are going to flow out of that building or that area. And this does apply to outdoor water parks too. You may have emergency exits that are doors that are in your fenced areas. Those doors also, 15 pounds of pressure needs to be opened on those doors, and there needs to be a safe area for your guests to go in case of an emergency. Signage. If you're going to have a sign one place like we have here with life jackets, let's have it at the other place as well. And then tape, we're not wanting to tape over signs there. We definitely want to take the time to get the right signage in place. Ride path surfaces and safety, classifying fiberglass repairs. These are common repair areas. So stress cracks, you can have stress cracks that are in the ride path of fiberglass water slides. They could be there from the manufacturer. They could be there right after installation. We won't flag them unless there's a sharp edge to them. So they have to have a raised edge. Otherwise, you'd be fixing these types of small stress cracks all the time. Chips, voids, gouges. They it's great to have somebody on your team that's trained to do these kind of common repairs. This can keep you up and running. We offer training for that, but there's a lot of videos online that can get your team certified to respond to a simple chip or a simple void. Osmotic blistering is more challenging. These are blisters that are coming up in the ride path. Oxidation and calcium buildup should be being taken care of with regular routine maintenance. Some parks are on biannuals where they're polishing and waxing. Other parks are on an annual polish and waxing. Advanced repairs are where just you need a certified company to be doing these type of repairs. The American Composite Manufacturers Association is the watchdog group in the United States. And we want to just emphasize that it's important to hire that type of a company, that type of a technician, because you don't hire electricians that are not certified electricians. So don't hire CCTs or fiberglass technicians that haven't passed their CCT. Now, they'll take care of bare fiberglass, negative or positive seams, leaking seams, and delamination and coring. Yep, great example of a stress crack, not raised. It's not catching anyone, wouldn't catch your fingernail, or cheesecloth is a great way to test it. And so that's probably been there from the moment of install. Crazing is a chemical problem. It can oftentimes be in a slide for decades and not create a problem. If those little triangles start popping up and they start becoming a sharp edge, then you do know you have a problem. The challenge here is don't be fooled. You can't just scuff and then coat over this, because the crazing will come right back through your new coating. It's very costly, but all of that coating needs to be sanded and stripped away so that you're back down to bare fiberglass, and then you can start again. Chips, voids, gouges. We really feel strongly that you should be empowered to do minor repairs at your own facility so that an attraction isn't down. So you can get training on this, as I said. You do want to slow down if it's in the ride path, especially in a body slide. The red chip is outside of the ride path, and but would be pretty easy to repair if you had a little bit of training in your maintenance team. Here's a great example of osmotic blistering. It's that gel coat is a little porous. It's not as porous as concrete, but the water will penetrate through the gel coat in those areas that you have full saturation all the time. So that run out, that start tub, it's not getting a break. And so that water will penetrate through the gel coat. It'll get into the resin and it'll start breaking down the resin. And then you start getting these blisters. If you were to pop one of these blisters, it would smell like vinegar, and that's the resin breaking down. These dark marks that are over here are blisters that have broken, and then you have the resin, black resin, that's kind of leaking through there. We are actually being innovative in this area, and we've added another step to our process in repairing these with a vinyl ester primer coat. And vinyl ester is a high-end resin, and it will protect the fiberglass that's underneath it. So you'll find these areas in your exit panels, your start tubs, and your runouts. Those are the most common areas that they show up. Oxidation and calcium buildup. This is highly oxidized, and there's a difference between oxidation and calcium buildup. And so oxidation happening from chlorinated water, calcium buildup from the minerals laying on top of it. We actually polished this ProSlide funnel out. It, many people think that we gel coated it, but it actually had to be sanded and then polished and then waxed to get back to this surface here. Scaling can be dangerous if it's in, again, a body slide. I've been cut on my back from scaling, test riding slides. So you do need to keep an eye on that as it can be built up. Bare fiberglass, again, we feel strongly that you can be touching these things up yourself and your maintenance team. The one on the left is just a high friction area of the raft going over the same area. The one on the right is probably gone too far, and that probably does warrant a full gel coat, not something that you would do in-house. But it's very easy to identify when the gel coat is having wear through, and then you're starting to have bare fiberglass and resin come through the ride surface. Yeah, let's talk about negative and positive seams. ASTM has a guideline for this, and there's no tolerance for a negative seam. So whether that's a new slide or that's an old slide that has experienced some settling, there's a zero tolerance. So those seams need to be perfectly in line. There is a tolerance for a positive seam. So you can see the positive seam is raised higher, and it creates a step down rather than a speed bump with a negative seam. It's easy for me to remember the difference between the two because negative seams have negative effects. Positive seams, you'll get off and hopefully not have an injury. But if that positive seam is more than 3/16, then it's outside the ASTM tolerance for it. You actually don't need to accept a ride when it's going new into operation if you have negative seams. You can ask the manufacturer and the installer to correct any negative seams and any positive seams that are more than 3/16. Delamination and coring. So on your bigger rides and on your platform panels, there's from the manufacturer additional coring, and it's a balsa wood that they use to create more strength in the fiberglass. And as I said earlier about the osmotic blistering, water can penetrate through the gel coat, get into the coring, and the coring can start rotting out. So you want to identify that so that you don't have guests stepping through or falling through that area. It's very difficult on your mat racers and on your, let's see, a common slide that does have breakthrough is like those small little 2-lane kiddie slides that come off of a play structure. It's difficult to, it's impossible really to inspect what's happening underneath. So you have to use your best judgment on what is an agreed upon deflection of that ride path of that area. So you're stepping on it, if you're like me with a massive 180-pound frame, my deflection is going to be different than Dalton King, who's 230 pounds and is ready to go play football for college again. So you have to kind of work through that subjective area when you're talking about deflection in areas that you can't visually inspect. But where you can, you need to get ahead of these signs where you see that the water is actually penetrating through the fiberglass and you're seeing discoloration in your coring and exterior fiberglass. Leaking seams are extremely dangerous because they're destroying your investment and they're creating unsafe areas for the structure itself. And certainly we've seen a lot of progress in Ohio because of Tyler's Law has essentially a no rust tolerance. So that is a real, improvement, I would say, to safety in the water park. There are ongoing problems. There are several ways that you can get ahead of these. You can caulk a seam. You can use a product called methacrylate. You can spread a seam and then wedge it and spread it and then caulk and pull it back together. Those are some of the ways that you can address these leaking seams. This is kind of an area where some maintenance teams are good at them, but when you get to a point where you're really wanting to loosen bolts and separate them, it's best to bring in somebody that's an expert in that area. Corrosion, I think this is where I should probably tell a joke so you guys are not lost me completely. So two people are out in the woods. They see a bear. One guy gets down and starts tying his shoe. The other guy says, you can't run faster than the bear. But the guy says, I can run faster than you. And how that relates to rust is that rust will go after the weakest areas. So that's what we need to be tuned into. Where are those areas that don't have coatings? Where are those areas are most vulnerable? Where are those areas that are getting splashed over from our slides? Can we mitigate that? Mitigating that rust means that we need to protect the rust from oxygen and moisture. That's really the key. And here's localized rust. It's getting too far ahead of us now. This area may not be able to be repaired. It may have to be replaced. That's a real concern. So the key is quick preventative maintenance to stay on top of your rust areas. Pitting, the same principles apply. The rust is going to go after the most vulnerable areas, and so here we have examples of what pitting corrosion looks like. NDT testing, non-destructive testing. Here we're on the left, we're using a mag particle yoke there, and what's happening is that kind of reddish burgundy yolk, it has a positive and negative charge to it, and it's creating this magnetic field. And then the technician underneath is spraying some pulverized steel. And so in that field, if there's a crack, that powder will be drawn right to that crack, and it'll be as obvious as turning on a light. On the right, we're using ultrasonic testing to check the thickness of steel. And that's another way, without destroying the column or drilling holes in things, that you can see what the thickness is. And so then the question would be, Tony, okay, so now you know the thickness. What do you compare that to? Great question. I'm glad you asked. You need to go back and look at what the original drawing for that column is, and then you can start to see how much degradation you've had to do that. We do a lot of this on play structures, and we can actually forecast out with our engineering team how much more life you have on a particular column. So those are a couple of examples of non-destructive testing. Yep, here they all are. We put the most common ones at the top of this list. Um, you can see the visual inspection. Don't take this for granted. Yes, there's a certification that you and your team can get to be certified in visual inspection, but that is the most common, and everyone that can see can do this. And that's what I've said at the beginning of this webinar, that we want you to have a fresh set of eyes each and every day to be disciplined when you're showing up to your facility. And you can't inspect what you can't see. So you do need to make sure that you're having good lighting. It does mean that you do have to clean away grease and dirt from areas that you may be suspicious of a crack or something that is there. Sometimes you're gonna have to remove panels to get underneath your play structure to inspect areas that you can't see. Ultrasonic testing, shared with you an example of that. Mag particle was the yolk. Liquid dye penetrant, it's very common. You wipe a dye onto a steel area, it does have to be clean of grease and paint. And then you clean that dye all up until it's completely gone. Then you spray some shaving cream essentially on there, and that will draw the dye out of any cracks that were in there. And again, it's like turning on a light. You can see that crack immediately. And radiograph testing, that's commonly also used in the roller coaster or any of you that have dry rides. So that's a little highlight on non-destructive testing. Slip and falls. A colleague of mine today said that if you're a single guy out there and you want to have a girl fall for you, take her to a water park because it's the highest area known for slip and falls. So horrible joke, but he told it to me, so it seemed relevant. So, as we're looking at trying to identify areas of liability for slip and falls, we're looking for uneven surfaces. We're looking for striping, stair striping that is or is not there. And we're looking for textured surfaces as well, especially in wet areas. Yeah, so it's arguably the biggest reason for accidents in the United States and maybe even worldwide, but there's a significant increase, about 40% in the amusement park industry. So that's something to take note of. And that's something that everyone should be tuned into on your team. Where's that water? Where are we having consistent falls in the bathrooms? Is it in the queue line? And then trying to address those areas. So some industry best practices: numbering your seams, drone inspections, relationships with your DOH, your vendors, your manufacturers, work with operations and people. Your operations people are your best eyes and ears. We really need to lean into their expertise. As I said earlier, you need to be about it, not just talk about it, and that will then start to resonate through your team. We have different awards that we set up. Every quarter, we give up this golden rock to the department that's performing the best or had completed their biggest challenges for the quarter. So we really do see a lot of value in incentivizing and rewarding teams for doing the right thing and stepping up to the plate with a fresh set of eyes. As you're looking at areas, tipping back to slip and falls, here is a textured surface that's really aggressive. This is really aggressive. I've had some general managers say, I'd rather have a scuffed toe than a slip and fall. And then you can go down to something that's much more smooth. We like to say that going back to the originally OEM is a great practice. And if you're going to error on textured surface, error on something a little bit more aggressive than the OEM. I was doing an inspection at a water park, and the day that I was there, a 4-year-old boy slipped in a start tub, got 4 stitches. Tough kid, rode the slide like this, got to the bottom of the kiddie slide, and was going up to get in the queue line again. His mom stopped him. This was all seen on video, and saw that he needed stitches. Well, what happened in that case was that start tub had been resurfaced. and the company had sprayed gel coat over the original OEM. So we had to take that into consideration, that the original OEM was made at that textured surface for a purpose, and now it has 10 years of wear. And now we've just applied, say, 10 to 20 mils on top of that. We've buried that textured surface. So kind of honing into those areas where you have common slip and falls, and then trying to see how you can best mitigate it. We like LifeFloor as a product in some of those areas, in and around your pools. There's other products that you can use, and even, as I said, coating products that you can use on your treads and on your steps for highlighting some of the great things that are out there. But it starts with a documentation of it, and then getting action items to address it. Don't ever bypass safety systems. That's the last bullet here. They're there to design. Yep. Recap. Yep. Inspection protocols we covered. Ride safety, surfaces, again, being honed in to where your guests are coming into direct contact of that ride surface, so your body slides. And we know this, but we need to slow down and share with our team that the faster the ride, the bigger the liability is. So if that body slide is a loop slide, a drop slide, that is increasing the liability there. Visual inspections of steel, you've got to stay on top of those and slow down. Again, you cannot inspect what you can't see, so you have to have good flashlights, good lighting. Non-destructive testing, we covered the different forms of non-destructive testing, and that if you are taking your AIMS test or your NARSO test, it is a test question. What is the most common NDT? It is visual inspection. And then they can start going down from there depending on what your needs are. And then we covered slip and falls. As Preston said, if you single and you want a girl to fall for you, take her to a water park. It is the most common thing that we see as we're doing inspections worldwide that creates problems. I would say slowing down and taking those areas seriously, and what you can do to prevent slip and falls, that would be a great game changer for your facility. Questions? Yes. Hey, we're pretty much on time here, guys. Dewey, I'm happy with that.
Yeah, that's good timing. That's you almost nailed it perfectly, Tony.
Thanks.
We have just as a reminder to those watching, if you have any questions, please toss them into chat, and we'll relay those over to Tony. We have one question that was emailed that I want to ask. Before we do that, our audience is a lot of public health officials, right? So, kind of a follow-up question for you is specifically talking to public health officials that may be tasked with going out and permitting and responding to these issues at water parks and anywhere with the slide. It's not just water parks, but anywhere with these type slides, right? What what are your top three kind of bullet points for the health official that may be tasked with looking, inspecting, and checking out these things?
Yeah, obviously the slip and falls are something to hone in on, and to see where those areas are areas of liability. Then water quality comes next to mind there, and honing in on, are those protocols and are those standards being followed. And then lastly, I think access, as we talked about, where we don't want guests to go, they shouldn't go. And where we want them to go in case of an emergency, they should go. And those are the top three that I would say that I would be zeroing in on as I'm doing inspections for a facility.
Okay, great. Thank you, Tony. I want to
You're welcome.
do a follow up on that. When we talk about water quality, our main concern obviously is sanitation and bather hygiene. But we know that your LSI, your water chemistry, is critical for plaster surface specifically.
Sure.
How And a lot of times with these slides, they may not be focusing so much on water chemistry, thinking it's not plaster, it's not going to degrade. How sensitive are the gel coats and the fiberglass structures to, being out of balance compared to your LSI?
Yeah, that's a really good question, and it's a little bit subjective for me. I would say that a really good industry to look at is the cruise line industry. So we have customers in the cruise line industry, and we do inspections for them, but they hyperchlorinate. So they spike their chlorine counts way up. And what we see on those cruise ships is that there's a great deal of oxidation because of that. And so I think if you're slowing down and you're looking at your substrates, whether that's a plaster or fiberglass or concrete, that substrate is going to tell the story. So if you're seeing high oxidation, that's a good indication that you've surpassed what that substrate can tolerate in the chlorination.
Okay, cool. That's good to know. That's very good to know.
Yeah, you've
How
got to get this.
sensitive are the gel coats to like your alkalinity and calcium fluctuations? Or is that something even really worried about?
Well, that the calcium is going to be laying on top, right? And so, as I said earlier, gel coat is a little bit porous, so it will settle and kind of get a grip. It's easy to mitigate if there's routine maintenance going on. I would say the calcium, the minerals that are on top of the glass is easier to mitigate than the oxidation because the oxidation is happening in the color of it.
Right. No, that's good stuff. Good to know. Good to know.
Sure.
So we have one question. This is actually emailed in. And I'll paraphrase, right? The concern is with water slides being off and not having water flow. Um, you know, how, what are the best practices for slides regarding how long water can be turned off, specifically for biofilm growth?
Specifically for what?
Biofilm, to prevent biofilm.
Yeah, I would have to look into that because it seems that those shutdowns vary between different parts, the timing of that. So I don't have a great answer on that operation, unfortunately, Dewey.
Okay, no, that's fine. I'll do a follow-up on that, just in general. Do you see a lot of issues with biofilm on the slide surfaces, or is that really not, in your experience, is a major concern?
No, it's not, and not in our experience often. I'm trying to think like in areas that are closed flume slides that are bigger. I think that there can be some more concern there because of the trapped humidity there. But as a rule of thumb, no, it's not.
And that might be solved just by mechanical scrubbing with a cleaning solution, I'm assuming.
Absolutely. Yep. Yeah. And again, like that's happening because the chlorinated water isn't getting to that particular area per se. We offer chemical washing as a service, but it's also one of those services that we are like, hey, you could do this in-house as well. And so there's a number of products that could help with that.
Okay, good, good, good. So, and some of the biofilm, and this ties into the next question, comes out of, some very real emerging concerns. I won't say emerging, they've been there for a while, right?
Sure.
The biofilm there's a lot of talk about biofilm in aquatic settings. And there's a lot of talk about Legionella too, right? So have you, in your experience or know of, have you seen any Legionella outbreaks or Legionella concerns with this aerated water in relation to slides?
Yeah, I have not. Yep, have not. We we'll do about 500 projects a year, and a lot of those are inspections. And so, in my tenure, no.
Okay, cool. Good beans. Cool beans.
Yeah.
We had another question about repeating the organization that certifies fiberglass composites. Connor did answer that in the chat. That's the American Composites and Manufacturers Association. So thank you for that, Connor. Can you do a quick, just kind of recap for anyone interested in, you know, being certified to inspect slides as an in-house option, right? Can you talk a little bit more about the AIMS and NARSO certifications and that process?
Sure. For your level 1 AIMS ride inspector, it can be done in NARSO and AIMS can be done in the same fashion. So you're going to arrive on Monday morning. You'll take classes for Monday through Thursday. There'll be some morning classes Friday, and then you'll test that day to pass your exam. I think they're great knowledge, but they are geared a lot towards dry rides, and they're working on improving the water park part of that test. So then the test is given. There's 100 questions. There are multiple choice. Um, if I was to guess, probably 10 to 15% are water park related, and then the majority of them are dry rides.
Okay.
Yep. I would also say that I advocate for the right people in teams to be going to those. There's a lot of great networking that is happening outside of the classes. And I think that that's great to be collaborating with other inspectors and other organizations to see how we can learn from each other. It actually reminds me a lot of what you said earlier, Dewey, about Mark Moore's website, that was the intention of it, right? And how essential that is, that we can collaborate and learn from each other, so we're not learning to recreate the wheel on our own each and every time.
Yeah. Conferences are really, everyone thinks it's conferences as you go to the presentation, you do the things, right? But, for anyone going to a conference, the absolute key is connectivity, right? It's you're sitting in the lounge and, you have a chance to talk to Tony and you can dive into so much more detail and depth and, so many more leads on whatever product you need or whatever else that, may not come in the typical conference presentation. And
Correct. Yeah.
just, anyone going to conferences, really, that networking is absolutely key. There's a lot of talk going on right now about trying to emphasize that. So, yeah, I'm glad
Agreed.
you mentioned it.
Yeah, agreed. I will say to the health inspectors out there, we've been critical of some in the country that get into how would you say, like, their thing that they're always looking for, they're always trying to fix or write up in sight. And I would say to that person, get outside of that scope. We have an inspector that is just tuned into handrails, and handrails being tight, and handrails being the paint not being chipped on them. Those are important things, but there's a whole other world out there that needs to be inspected. And if you're zoned in on your pet peeve, then you may be missing other things to be flagging and talking about. Also, I think that our customers that are working with the local health officials, they really, our customers want to feel like this is a partnership and that we're really working together, and it's not somebody on the outside pointing the finger at them and trying to get them in trouble. That's where collaboration happens, and that's where safety will actually flourish, when there's this cooperation of partnership, and not a finger pointing going on.
Absolutely. Very, very valid point. We often say that our health inspectors are the facility's lifeguard.
Yeah.
And that's any inspectors, the facilities lifeguard. So that's a
Yeah.
very, very timely point to make there, Tony.
Yeah.
We have just a couple minutes left. I want to ask one thing because it was in the presentation and I'm unfamiliar with it. Can you kind of give an overview of what Tyler's Law is from the state of Ohio?
So there was a serious accident that happened at a carnival ride, and a boy by the name of Tyler died. And so the state came out with essentially a no rust tolerance. So if they flag a facility for rust, there's a very short window of time that they have to respond and do a full rust mitigation. And the pressure that that puts onto a water park for something that happened at a carnival ride is pretty significant considering that we're operating in and around chlorinated water. Um, However, I do think that it's been good. Overall, I think that it's been good and it is helping both safety and protecting of the investment of that facility.
Sounds good. No, I like that. I hate that it's in response to an ill injury or tragedy, but
Yeah,
we've been to so many places, not just water parks, but everywhere, where you look around and this chlorinated water is just eating everything up. And I know I've seen structures looking at it going, is that going to last another year? So hearing something like that's in place, unfortunately, is oftentimes necessary.
right.
So, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Well, Tony, we're at the hour. Want to be respectful of yours and everyone's time. So again, many thanks to Tony Perry and Connor McGrath from Safe Slide Restoration to coming and chatting today. This was wonderful, Tony. So glad that you were able to spare some time out of a very, very busy schedule to do this. So thank you very much. And for all the other presenters, or all the other attendees, if you have any questions, please feel free to email me directly at deweycase@cmac.org, and I'll be more than happy to forward these for Tony and however needed, or whatever connection I can make to assist that. Okay.
Yeah.
So
Thank you.
thank y'all. Thank you, everyone. We'll see you on
Yep.
the next webinar.
All right. We'll see you out there. WWA, NRPA, Ames, NARSA. Look us up. We're here to help.
Excellent. Thank you, Tony.
Yep. Cheers.